Even if it was successful, do you want it to be successful? Do you want the Democrats to be the ones dishing out like a lighter version of fascism? You're basically gearing your population to be more open-minded towards Republican fascism. That's frustrating to me as someone who looks at least like a couple steps ahead. I'm saying it. Now let's hear from Kamala and Liz Cheney.
I am a Ronald Reagan conservative. I believe in limited government. I believe in low taxes. I believe in a strong national defense. And I believe that the private sector is the engine of growth of our economy. I believe that the family and not the government is the most important structure.
So will you be voting for Joe Biden?
society.
Yes, I already said it. I'm riding with Biden. I'm riding in Biden. He said he does not recognize Taft-Hartley, and that I will remember.
Our security and our freedom depend upon a world in which America, with our allies, leads. And above all else, I know that the most conservative of conservative values is fidelity to our Constitution. I tell you, I have never voted for a Democrat, but this year, I am proudly casting my vote for Vice President Kamala Harris.
I'm so lived up. Hell yeah. Girl boss. Girl boss, baby. I love the small government and private sector myself. I will, of course, be voting for the small government conservative Donald Trump, but I'll still entertain this Liz Cheney conversation.
Thank you. But mostly, we're not going back.
Why is Liz Cheney doing this? How is this good for her agenda? Bro, she's cooked. She has no agenda. She's going to write a book and go on MSNBC and become a talking head. That's it. Her political ambitions are over, dude. She has no constituency. She represents nothing.
Vice
You know what's
President
really
Harris
funny? I think Liz Cheney
dedicated
will
her
still
life
secretly vote
to
for
public
Donald
service.
Trump.
I know that she loves our country, and I know that she will be a president for all Americans. As a conservative, as a patriot, as a mother, as someone who reveres our Constitution, I am honored to join her in this urgent cause. As we meet here today, our republic faces a threat unlike any we have faced before. A former president who attempted to stay in power by unraveling the foundations of our republic, by refusing to accept the lawful
Can I say
results.
something? I mean, it's my stream. I can say whatever I want, but I have a sneaking suspicion that these guys hate Donald Trump because Donald Trump takes their toys away. And Donald Trump spells volatility. And I think what these guys don't realize is that when they come out and they're like, Donald Trump is going to fuck up democracy, I don't think the Trump voters care. Like, I don't think many Americans care. Why don't they care? Because they hate the government, dog. So, if anything, this probably causes them to like Trump even more, even if you're in the margins. They see Trump as a destructive force and they like it. It's such a shallow statement. They like Trump as a destructive force because the government itself has not done anything for them. You know, when people say like, oh, Trump represents a danger for democracy, they mean Trump is dangerous for the current way of existence in this country. And if you're angry and resentful about the current way of existence in this country, you probably go, yeah, I like that. You have like a barely 20% approval rating for Congress year over year. I think a lot of people understandably despise the government. I guess luckily enough for liberals, most people who are resentful and despise the government are too lazy to get off the couch and vote for Donald Trump. That's it.
As they brutally beat law enforcement officers, as they hunted the vice president and the Speaker of the House, Donald Trump watched the attack
Yeah.
on television.
CNN and MSNBC are covering the speech. Fox News isn't. So who is this for? It's for CNN and MSNBC.
Sitting in the dining room next to the Oval Office, he refused repeated pleas from his family, from his closest advisors, from the most senior officials in his campaign and in our government to tell the mob to leave. And when Donald Trump finally did speak publicly after hours of violence, after the Capitol had been invaded, he praised the rioters. He did not condemn them. That's who Donald Trump is. Those facts that we know about what Donald Trump did, including what he did when our Capitol was under siege, those facts do not come from Donald Trump's political opponents. Those facts come from the people closest to him. They are the ones who testified that Donald Trump did not want to stop the violent attack on our Capitol. When he learned that Vice President Pence was not going to abandon his oath and help Trump seize power, Trump sent out a tweet attacking Pence and further inflaming the mob. One of Trump's aides testified.
Like, for me, Donald Trump doing January 6th is like so low on the scale of atrocities that he caused, dude. Like assassinating foreign leaders, deporting thousands of migrants, like greatly accelerating ICE dragnet, doing the family separation deterrence policy, massive tax cuts for the wealthy and corporations, tax cuts that actually literally sunset for every other tax bracket. I just don't care that like Donald Trump did January 6th. It was funny. At least it made me laugh. You know what I mean? Watching those fat hogs climb up the walls of the Capitol and like get pepper sprayed was a hilarious moment. Okay. If Donald Trump was like, I don't know, I guess like a run of the mill Democrat and then did January 6th, I would say, okay, that's a little bit weird. That's like definitely in the top 5 things that are pretty bad. But the issue is Trump's entire existence, from hyping up Nazis, greatly utilizing the bully pulpit to like greatly worsen conditions for undocumented citizens and people who are black and brown, like putting Supreme Court justices, appointing Supreme Court justices into the United States Supreme Court that took away civil liberties. All of these things are so much worse. I just can never find myself to take January 6th arguments seriously. I just don't care. I think personally, if you're this invested in the January 6th argument, you probably are a relatively privileged person. Okay. I think that there is relative privilege. And for a lot of people, I think, that care about American politics, that are like hyper focused on American politics, this is the only shit that they care about, because for them, you know, the process works. And he did the unthinkable. He tried to break the process. But for many, the process doesn't work. I personally think Donald Trump did a shit ton of significantly worse things than January 6th. I guess that's the difference between me and the people who are like, no, you don't understand. January 6th is really important. For the record, I'm not saying what he did on January 6th was like acceptable. Of course it wasn't. Of course. I'm simply stating that in terms of like, in order of priority, if there was a hierarchy of like awful shit that he did, because it is such a target rich environment, January 6th doesn't even make the top 10, right? Like, it's simply a continuation of all the other much worse, much more consequential things that he did. Okay. That's it. And the American media has like routinely tried to universalize the harm caused by January 6th over and over again by greatly beefing up that aspect of Trump's administration, while rarely covering all of the other infinitely more damaging things that Donald Trump did to the American economy, to the American worker. Why? Because all of those other things that he did actually helped the bottom line of American companies. It helped the bottom line of American corporations, or it caused a decent distraction so that you never actually got mad at the real people in positions of power, and instead got mad at the undocumented migrants. And that is what's very frustrating. And that is how you only can arrive at a position where the Democrats are advocating for the same positions that Donald Trump advocated for all the way back in 2020, in 2024, without much scrutiny. That is the reason why everybody talks about January 6th. January 6th is mostly frustrating and terrifying, not for the average American, but for politicians. It's the same principle behind we have to immediately fix this gun violence problem because it's impacting Donald Trump. In a country where gun violence impacts Donald Trump, what about the average person? It can happen to anyone. It does happen to everyone. Gun violence is a you problem. It's not a them problem. When it becomes a them problem, then they're like, whoa, we're going to spend billions of dollars in the Secret Service to make sure that, this never happens again. Gun violence is already a you problem, especially if you send your children to public school, especially if you go to public school. It's a problem for you. It's not a problem for them. But the moment that it becomes a problem for them, whoa, we got to dial this back. Whoa, calm down now. That's it. And I view January 6th in the same framework. This isn't to say that it's not like out of the ordinary, unusual, up. It is. It just simply, in the grand scheme of things, it simply is not in the top 10, maybe 20 worst things that Donald Trump did. But it's shocking that the media covers it as though it is the worst thing that Donald Trump did. I called it funny 2 days ago. It is objectively funny.
History teaches us again and again that democracies can fall. They fall to populists. They fall to strongmen. Strongmen who beguile their fellow citizens with conspiracy theories and false emergencies. As my friend, the late Charles Krauthammer, taught us, the lesson of our history is that the task of merely maintaining strong and sturdy the structures of our constitutional order is unending. It is the continuing and ceaseless work of every generation. And that responsibility now falls on all of us in this election. This great country of ours requires leaders of character. We must choose men and women who have what Abraham Lincoln called a sincere heart. Our nation's second president, John Adams, put it this way. On the first night he ever spent in the White House, he wrote a letter to his wife, Abigail. And his letter included a prayer that is so special, President Kennedy had it engraved in the mantelpiece in the state dining room in the White House. And in his letter, he said this, "May none but honest and wise men ever rule under this roof."
How bad do you think a second Trump presidency will be? It'll be bad. It'll be really bad.
Now I'm women too.
Which is why I despise these freaks in the Democratic Party for bouldering towards that. Okay? Bouldering towards that reality, spearheading the effort, and worse than potentially losing to Donald Trump, the fact that they are setting the conditions for a Trumpian-style form of governance to be considered appropriate, at least on the issue of immigration, at least on the issue of the way we see black and brown people. Because you don't know who the is a documented and undocumented person. It just means black and brown people. That's all this shit is. Okay? So when the Democratic Party is both losing potentially to the Republican Party and doing it in a way where they are also priming their base of support to believe the Republican Party's dangerous conspiracies surrounding immigrants, this is a terrifying prospect.
Kamala Harris for president. I know that President Harris will be able to unite this nation. I know that she will be a president who will defend the rule of law. And I know that she will be a president who can inspire all of our children, and if I might say so, especially our little girls. To do great things. So help us right the ship of our democracy so that history will say of us, when our time of testing came, we did our duty and we prevailed because we loved our country more. And now, it is my great honor to introduce you to our Vice President and the next President of the United States, Kamala Harris.
Dude, the current contract for the ILA is an extension on the previous contract, but it doesn't matter if the members don't ratify the new terms and conditions that are being set as they get back to work. The strike is back in action. Okay? See? A tentative deal would still need to be ratified by the rank and file ILA members before it would take effect, but with ships stuck at sea unable to come into the U.S. ports to unload and load goods, the union has agreed to have workers return to work on Friday. It is a show of goodwill from the union to continue getting back to work, but it doesn't matter. Should the rank and file refuse to ratify the contract, vote against the deal, the strike will start again. Okay, it has happened before. Just last month, the International Association of Machinists and Jetmaker Boeing reached a tentative deal that union leaders recommended to their 33,000 members accept, and even described as the best deal they had ever negotiated with the company, but union members voted nearly unanimously to reject it and have remained on strike since September 13th. Remember, I told you that you cannot take back a contract that they say no to. Okay, because there is still a democratic process. That's why I said the company side has all of the power to end this work stoppage, whereas the union side does not. Do you get it? All right, let's listen to these freaks now.
Mayor Grant, thank you for the warm welcome.
I gotta pee.
I want to thank Senator Tammy Baldwin, who is traveling around the state, but who I know you will re-elect in November. Thank you, Sheriff Mitchek, for your support and your life of service to the people of Iowa County. And so I do want to say a bit more about Liz Cheney. You all know her leadership, and she has obviously and so importantly been a leader for the people of Wyoming, but she has also been an extraordinary national leader and has served with great honor. And she not only, as she has talked today, recognizes that character is among the most important attributes of leadership, but she also personifies that attribute. And she possesses some of the qualities of character that I most respect in any individual and any leader. Courage, especially at a moment like this, where there are so many powerful forces that have been intent on trying to demean and belittle and make people afraid. And there are many who know it is wrong, and then there are those who have the courage to speak out loudly about it and the conviction to speak truth. And, you know, it is so admirable when anyone does it, and especially when it is difficult to do in an environment such as this. But Liz Cheney really is a leader who puts country above party and above self, a true patriot, and it is my profound honor to have your support. And I also want to thank your father, Vice President Dick Cheney, for his support.
Boo!
And
Boo!
what he has done to serve our country.
Gross!
Every
Gross!
endorsement matters, and this endorsement
Boo!
matters a
You
great deal,
suck.
And it carries a special significance because, as you said, we may not see eye to eye on every issue, and we are going to get back to a healthy two-party system. I am sure of that, where we will have vigorous debates.
Why? Why? Why do you want that?
And as you said, you may not have supported a Democrat for president before, but as you have also said, we both love our country and we revere our democratic ideals. And we both also believe in the nobility of public service. And we know that our oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America is a sacred oath, an oath that must be honored and must never be violated. And your words today and the reason we are all here today, I think really do underscore perhaps one of the most fundamental questions that is facing the American people in this election. Who will obey that oath? Who will abide by the oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States of America? I have had the privilege. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I have sworn an oath to uphold the Constitution 6 times in my career, including as Vice President, as a United States Senator, and as the top law enforcement officer of the largest state in our country. Responsible for upholding and enforcing the laws of the state and the laws of the United States was the work I did. And I have never wavered in upholding that oath. And I have always executed it faithfully and without reservation. And therein lies the profound difference between Donald Trump and me. He who violated the oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America. And make no mistake, he who, if given the chance, would violate it again. Donald Trump lost the 2020 election. And as you have heard and know, he refused to accept the will of the people and the results of an election that was free and fair. As you have heard, he sent an armed mob to the United States Capitol, where they assaulted law enforcement officers. He threatened the life of his own vice president and refused to engage in the peaceful transfer of power. And let us be clear about how he intends to use power if elected again. He has called for jailing journalists, political opponents, anyone he sees and deems.
Every day that passes by, I feel more and more like Kamala Harris is going to lose. Since the DNC, I've kept repeating over and over again that liberals should not be worried that Kamala Harris, in spite of her awful campaigning, is doing well enough in the polls, and seemingly she will most likely win the election. And I'm not kidding when I say this. I feel as though, in spite of the historic unpopularity of
of
the Trump
Constitution of the
administration and the Trump
United States, as
campaign,
Donald Trump never
I believe
again
that she is
stands
inching
seal
towards
of
a defeat.
the President of the United States.
Actions like this one
Never again.
only reaffirm, actions like this one, doing a like Trump Republicans for Harris rally alongside Liz Cheney, a person with zero constituency. Like, you have to understand, this person does not have an active constituency within the Republican Party at all. Okay? Celebrating her endorsement in this way, using campaign resources and funds to promote Liz Cheney, thinking that that is going to move the needle for you, spells trouble for the future prospects of this campaign. Not necessarily because like this is going to negatively polarize people against her. I mean, I'm sure people that would have been negatively polarized towards this sort of thing are even more reaffirmed in their commitment to not vote for the Democratic Party despite their progressive values, right? But I just mean that it shows me that they have a finite amount of time and a finite amount of money, and they're using it for this, which is wholly unproductive. It shows me that they're stupid. Like, they are wasting time, effort, and resources on dumbass bullshit. That's it. Campaigns that do stuff like this will lose. Trump, on the other hand, in spite of his historic unpopularity, is literally actively trying to win voters from every corner he can. Kamala Harris has a much broader base of support that she can lean into that she chooses not to. Donald Trump does not. And in spite of that reality, in spite of the fact that Donald Trump was president already, has his like firmly committed base, he's still choosing to go out and try to pick apart any vote he possibly can. Literally any. Kamala Harris, on the other hand, is throwing. These are not real voters that she could potentially go after. Okay? Lol, dude, you even look liberal? Oh, I liberated your dad's asshole last night with this dick. Okay? Trump doesn't have a massive amount of population to work with in terms of making his election chances better. People have already made up their minds on him. Okay? Have you ever addressed how the media instantly washed away the second assassination attempt or the reasoning behind it? Just as an honest question, bro. Thank you either way. Yeah, nobody cares. Do you care? Have you been thinking about the second Trump assassination attempt since then? No, you don't. You care about other shit. If you're a Republican, and this seems like a Republican line of questioning, you probably care more about, like, I don't know, Haitians eating cats and dogs or some shit. Some other made up shit, you know? It's not the media's fault. Word, I only care about Popeye's chicken, thanks. Yeah, you got it. It's funny to come here and talk to the only guy who has brought up Ryan Ruth's name every single day since the assassination, by the way. I would say I care more about Ryan Ruth than any number of right-wing media outlets. I'm the one guy, well, not in the way that you think I care about it. I'm a supporter of Ryan Ruth in the sense that me and him, we're like this. We're NATO voters, okay? On principle, I think that this is the United States of America. You should be able to walk around and open carry. And that's why I'm also on principle. As a small government conservative, I believe that it's a ridiculous use of resources. It's a ridiculous use of resources, a waste of resources to like add additional protection to the president, or not even a president, someone who's running for president. That money should go to Israel instead. Okay. I also, as a small government conservative, think it's ridiculous that we're just arresting people for walking around with weapons now. Okay. I thought this was America, not communist China. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
At Putin, a brutal dictator, launched against a free and independent people. Trump wants to force Ukraine to give up its sovereign territory, a bedrock principle upon which we stand and fight for. And you know who else wants them to give up their sovereign? Absolutely, territory? Putin. Putin. And that's not a plan for peace. It's a plan for surrender. Well, I believe that in the global struggle between tyranny and democracy,
Tyranny and
the
democracy.
President of the United States must always be
إذا
on the side of freedom.
قرارات كبيرة شفتها.
This is what we're on the side of. Just wanted to show you. While
So
she's
we are
talking to the
gathered
daughter of a
here
war
today
criminal,
in Ripon.
this is
not
what we're on
far,
the side of.
as the Congresswoman mentioned, from a small building.
Yeah, just understand this is what we're on the side of. This is what she's pushing for. This just in, by the way, literally from an hour prior, massive new wave of Israeli airstrikes in Beirut's southern suburb. Lebanon's health ministry said at least 37 people have been killed and 151 wounded by the Israeli attacks on Lebanon in the last 24 hours. According to Barak Ravid of Axios, this massive explosion, which was close to size as the Hassan Nasrallah assassination explosion, was targeted at senior Hezbollah leader Hashem Safi Adin, who was Hassan Nasrallah's likely successor. Okay? This is what it looks like in Beirut right now. 28 Lebanese healthcare workers killed in the last 24 hours as per UN. How are we any better than Russia? We aren't pulling the trigger on these bombs. We're doing everything up to that point. How do we say we have a moral high ground? What? We don't. We don't have a moral high ground. Nobody thinks we have a moral high ground. I think you are slightly wrong on no R's will vote for her. My suburb back in 2008 was 80-20 Republican. Now it's 60-40 D and probably could be 75-25 this year. A lot of older 40-plus R's are looking away from Trump and she's getting them. Suburb shift is real and growing. She's playing to them. Yeah, that leads me to my second question, which is, do you want the Democratic Party to be the Republican Party, but, you know, a little bit marginally better on the issue of gay people? You know, that's the other side. Even if this was a successful strategy, which, by the way, it is not, I will maintain that position. It is not a successful strategy, especially for someone like Kamala Harris. It is not a successful strategy because those high likelihood voters that are lifelong Republicans, even if they switch over to Kamala Harris this time around, are actively pushing the party further and further right. This creates an environment where we have incredibly reactionary politics on immigration. And my question always is, you're talking about your suburb, okay, that was 80-20 Republican, now is 60-40 D, which is, again, anecdotal. We don't know. I don't know what the migration patterns or whatever the looks like in your suburb either. I don't know if like people have left your suburb, people have gone into your suburb. You know that better than I do. But there are tens of millions of voters. If you look to the Obama 2008 strategy, there are tens of millions of voters that you are purposefully not choosing to activate. This is a problem for especially someone who is optically a black woman, okay? That strategy worked decently for the Biden campaign. For Kamala Harris, there is no proof that it will work. And not only is there no proof that it will work, but beyond that, there are plenty of other demos that she could be targeting, and she is not. She is hyper-focusing on the college-educated white voters in the suburbs and completely casting aside tens of millions of voters that do not fit that category. When in fact, if she were to run in a similar style to Barack Obama, she would actively win those coalitions back. People want to believe that the Democratic Party is interested in defending their rights. Kamala Harris openly says, "Nah, I'm not going to do that. Don't give a." But even if it was successful, even if it was successful, do you want it to be successful? Do you want the Democrats to be the ones dishing out like a lighter version of fascism? Because all you're doing in that situation is just creating ample ground for Republican fascists to come in. You're basically gearing your population to be more open-minded towards Republican fascism. That's frustrating to me as someone who looks at least like a couple steps ahead and does not like what he sees.
Categorize Donald Trump as being someone who has depraved cruelty. That's the language that she used, depraved cruelty. I got chills. I think it's very impactful to hear her, who, let's be clear, she is not a progressive Republican by any stretch of the imagination. This is someone who probably fundamentally disagrees with the Biden agenda and certainly with many of the things that Harris is proposing that she would do when she becomes president. But at the core of it is really this question that we have right now before us about what America we want to be. Are we going to be an America that lifts up people who are cruel and who do harm and who do not reflect the character that we deserve to be led by? Or are we going to come together despite our differences to put someone in place who's actually going to carry on the American ideal and preserve our democracy?
Okay.
So I think that
Like, no disrespect to you, Chatter. I know you're an older election watcher, okay? And I respect your perspective. I respect your point of view. But there are literally tens of millions of Americans out there that Kamala Harris could, with the stroke of a pen, captivate. And she's just letting them out there. She's just letting them die out there, basically. Showing them time and time again, I don't really give a fuck about you. We can win without you. Okay? That's what's incredibly frustrating. There are a larger number of voters out there who, at the very least, would be more likely to vote for Kamala Harris or outright are not voting for Kamala Harris because of the previous administration's historically unpopular dealings with Israel. Okay? It is pure arrogance to rely on the suburb vote, in the same way that Joe Biden did when you are very different than Joe Biden. And also, to make matters worse, Joe Biden himself was not going to be able to win those suburban votes and win the election. Joe Biden was doing better than Kamala Harris with the college-educated white voters, okay? He was doing better than Kamala Harris. Joe Biden was underwater with all of the other voting blocks, so much so that he was demonstrably losing. Kamala Harris basically trying to re-implement that strategy every day in this otherwise truncated campaign is devastatingly stupid. The Democratic Party is more socially progressive by far than 2008. A lot of these people were like, ew, gays a few decades ago. Even Obama was like, ew, gays law. A lot of social issues moved. Yeah, no, that's why I'm saying you just want to be gay Republicans at that point. And is that something that you want? A lot of social issues moved. These people as left as kids grew. And yes, she should play her base too. Her Israel stance is asked to me personally. I disagree with it being fascism light. A lot of suburb people nationally have more left, not just state as right wing. What? No, I think it's not even the Israel thing that I'm talking about in terms of like fascism light. Israel is just fascism full. Her fascism light attitude is on immigration. Because she and the Democratic Party want to get this left-wing parasite off the party that attached itself during the FDR admin. They want suburban Republicans that will continue to actively push the left away because there's no incentive in this country to do anything else. Yeah. Mexico's government has a strategy more similar to your suggestions, and they just elected a Jewish woman by over 60% of the vote in a 90% Catholic country. The right has moved left and ran like our neolibs. Yes, I know that. It is because the reactionary forces respond to any kind of counterweight. If the Democratic Party was actively progressive, you would see a significantly more progressive Republican Party as well. And what that chatter is saying in terms of like the suburbs moving to the left is exactly my argument, which is that every now and then the Democratic Party is forced by the activist base to do something that is progressive. And then when they do that and the legislative agenda follows through on it, then the Republicans can no longer attack that group because it's just like, no, we welcome them into normal society. That's my point. But the inverse of that also can happen, which is happening right now with respect to our analysis of migrants. And considering that you don't know who the f is a migrant and who the f is a natural born U.S. citizen, it just simply is a repackaging of white supremacy. That's my argument. And that is precisely what the Republicans are doing. They're hammering the white supremacy talking points, and the Democrats are caving on it. They are also saying, yeah, they have a point. We're going to be the ones that actively actually push this white supremacist, white nativist, anti-immigrant agenda. Not them. Vote for us instead. And ain't no racist is going to look at that and be like, well, you know, I'm a racist, but I'm also gay as f. That's why I'm voting for the Democratic Party. Okay? Think about it. Like, who is like, yeah, you know what? I want to vote for the annoying, smarmy, gay version of this like white supremacist insanity. Okay? Nobody's like that. All you're doing is, in a very smarmy way, gearing up and priming your base for the future that is going to be really violent and really white supremacist for a lot of black and brown people that will be cast aside as undocumented.
Aisha, there are some for whom that resonates, right? That is the choir, right? That is the preaching to the choir. That was a rally. But do you think at this point that does, bring in new people or give permission? And how come?
Well, as I watch this, one of the things that jump out at me is not so much as what's being said, but what's being seen. In this image where you have Liz Cheney standing there right behind Kamala Harris. And what that looks like to me is two strong and powerful women who are done with the patriarchy, who are done with the cat lady memes, who are done with the meanness and the nastiness. And if anything, I am sitting there watching them united as women that are more than 50% of this population. Remember, 57% of women fired Donald Trump and rejected him in the 2020 election. So to have the two of them standing there, even though their ideology.
Yeah, what percentage of white women fired Donald Trump? Oh, wait, that's right. White women voted by majorities for Donald Trump twice.
Mark, what do you think? The image itself of seeing them together side by side.
Well, I think obviously anytime we have women that are trying to rise to the top of the ticket and take over this country, it's a great sign for our country and our maturity as a nation. But to the point that that you were making a moment ago, it's like 57% voted in 2020, and now they're living with the consequences when many women are having problems putting groceries on the table for their family, worry about the security of themselves and their families because Kamala Harris let in 13,000 convicted murderers who are illegal immigrants in our country. All of these things are very real. They're now living with the consequences of that election, and I think quite a few of them are going to go back and say, I may not love how he tweeted, but definitely life was better under Donald Trump.
I love how CNN is just like Fox News now.
All right, so Philip, let me ask you that there's a strategy which Harris is engaging in, by the way, of going to deeply red counties. I mean, I just pointed out this is the county where they're speaking. That was the birthplace of the Republican Party, where she knows she's going to get killed.
Nothing for that.
Do a little bit better, right? And if you do that in a lot of different counties,
lady from Tel Aviv, Israel, nothing to that. Okay, cool.
Moderates. And there are some in the Democratic Party who think these Republican endorsements that Harris has been touting is a mistake, and it's not going to move the needle. And she should just focus on getting out her base, even in those deeply red counties, right? That should be the way to go. So what are you hearing?
Yeah, I just want to say, first of all, what Mr. Lauder just said about the 13,000 immigrants is absolutely.
That's sick.
Important to point that out.
Came from ICE, Phil.
It's not
Be
true.
a reporter.
It's absolutely not true.
Be a reporter.
Those were people that were in the country for
Customs
decades. Many of them are in custody currently because they were charged with murders. I've actually done the reporting on this, so you can trust me, viewers. Now,
democracy dies in darkness, Phil.
That's right. That's right. That's why we're honest with our viewers and with our readers. Okay, so to your point, Aaron, I will say that I think that, again, this is going to be an election that comes down to who comes out and actually votes, right?
Like,
and
that
so what
freak
we're gonna
should
wanna
not be on the
if we
panel
are-
at CNN, okay? There is no equivalent. I'm not on the panel at CNN. You know what I mean? Because his perspective is supposed to be that far outside of the scope of CNN, as far outside of the scope of CNN as someone like myself. They're not asking me to fucking be on the panel. Why are they asking him to be on the panel? That's a question that you have to ask yourself, okay? That person is insane. Like, that is an insane person.
For Donald Trump, or may want to potentially vote for Harris and giving them the opportunity to do so.
All right, I appreciate all of you. I appreciate the conversation and appreciate your facts and all the reporting that you have done on that issue of immigration and crime, Philip, and thank you very much.